Hello, I'm Andrew Lowe, and I want to start by thanking Gabriela Ramos, William Hines, and Alan Kerman for allowing me to participate remotely at this great OECD conference on new approaches to financial markets. I apologize for not being able to join you in person, but I was so keen to participate in this conference because it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, as you'll see in a minute, that I asked Alan whether or not I could participate via video. So I want to start by telling you that this is an incredibly important topic that a number of financial economists and practitioners have been struggling with for years. And so it's really heartening to see that the OECD has taken an interest in it and that you've gathered such luminaries to participate in this meeting. I want to tell you a little bit about my perspective on new approaches to financial markets by describing to you something about a recent book that I published titled Adaptive Markets: Financial Evolution at the Speed of Thought. I describe ideas in this book that are very similar to those done by people in the audience today, and I'd love to be able to interact afterwards to learn about their reactions and what they've been working on. But I got interested in this topic because, as with many of you who went through traditional economics training, I was taught the efficient markets hypothesis, the idea that prices fully reflect all available information. And as we now know, there is a very wide gulf between human behavior on the one end and efficient markets on the other. And this wide gulf has been the source of tremendous friction and controversy both in academia and in industry. And I have to tell you, it's a little bit like a child listening to his or her parents arguing. Nobody wants to hear their parents argue. You love them both and you just wish they would stop. And so in that spirit, I tried to think about whether or not there was a way to reconcile behavior with market efficiency, because both ideas are quite compelling. And that really is what the adaptive markets hypothesis is meant to be, a reconciliation of these two schools of thought in a framework that allows both to reflect their incredibly important contributions to what we see in the real world. So I'm going to do this by first summarizing what it is that the book is about, and then give you a very quick overview about how I get there. The basic idea is that the traditional investment framework is flawed. It's not wrong, but it's broken. Markets are efficient much of the time. It's hard to generate excess returns for you and your investors. But from time to time, markets do reflect fear and greed, and therefore we need to have an additional component. It's not wrong, but it's incomplete. Specifically, in a stable environment, stable investment policies will work just fine. But when markets are highly dynamic, then we need to have dynamic investment policies to reflect that kind of change. The current environment is highly dynamic, and therefore I would suggest that we really need to adapt to those kinds of changing market conditions. You know, a while ago, politicians said that it's the economy, stupid. What they meant by that is that economic challenges really drive decision-making. I think biologists should be telling us economists, no, it's the environment. The environment actually drives behavior. So the adaptive markets hypothesis is a framework that allows us to think about investing, risk management, financial regulation, and much, much more in a unified framework that incorporates both the efficient markets hypothesis and a variety of these behavioral anomalies. So let me just give you a word now about how I started thinking about all of these ideas. I really began, as many of you, as a disciple of the efficient markets hypothesis. I was taught in graduate school that it's very hard to arbitrage markets, that arbitrages don't exist, and that prices do reflect fundamentals. However, we know that when you're looking at the data, it actually doesn't work. And so there are many different paths that one can take if you now start deviating from market efficiency. And so when I started down that path from the efficient markets rational expectations framework, I first started looking into behavioral finance and psychology. That took me into cognitive neurosciences, which then brought me into artificial intelligence and bounded rationality, and ultimately brought me to evolutionary biology and ecology. And each of those topics are actually covered in my book. And I apologize in advance if any of you start to read it and are daunted by its great length, But one of the things that my publisher told me was that if I include any equation in the book, that's going to reduce my readership by half. So given that there are no equations in the book, it's that much longer. But it took me those many pages to be able to go through these different disciplines and try to put it all together. And when you do put it all together, what you get is this notion of adaptive markets. In fact, the hypothesis is very much along the lines of that old parable of 5 monks who, blind from birth, encounter an elephant for the first time. The monk that grabs the elephant's trunk says the elephant is just like a snake. And the monk that grabs the elephant's leg says, no, an elephant is just like a tree. They're not wrong, but they don't have the complete picture. The adaptive markets hypothesis provides that complete picture. With that, I want to leave you to the conference and the many interesting papers that will be presented. And I look forward to following up and learning about what has transpired. And again, thank you all for allowing me to participate remotely. And if you're interested in learning more about the work that we're doing here at MIT, please visit our website. Thank you very much.